On the procedural note, the 2023 Executive Board meetings will be held in person with a virtual option. We encourage you to be with us in person, but it's more important that we have your participation regardless of the format. To facilitate virtual participation, all delegates attending both virtually and in person are asked to state their name before making a motion, a second, voting, or posing a question or comment. So please state your name so Marissa Claiborne can get that on the record. Because we have delegates attending both in person and remotely, I'd like the clerk to call the roll at the beginning of the meeting so everyone is aware who is present. We can establish a quorum. Names will be called in alphabetical order by the last name. I'll now ask Marissa to call the roll, please.
Dante Anderson. Bobby Compton.
Here.
Patty Crump. Kathy Davis. Kevin Deminy. Martha Sue Hall.
Present.
Ryan Helms. Daryl Hennett.
Here.
Dean House. Bob Hovis. Cynthia Lewis Lemon. Here. Tony Long.
Here.
Jay McCosh.
Here.
Jerry Oxer. Elaine Powell. Here. Sean Rush.
Here.
David Scholl. Lynn Shu. Jennifer Stepp. Jennifer T.
Here.
And Jarvis Woodburn.
Here. We do have a quorum. Thank you. Thank you everyone for attending, whether it's remotely or in person. Please now join me for a moment of silence, please. Thank you, everyone. There are no amendments to the agenda, but I would like to speak regarding the consent agenda. Just some introductory comments, if you had time to review that. Agenda items, consent items, I'm sorry, 1 through 5. Just a few comments regarding that. On item 2, Leslie Mazingo from Strategic Consulting, for the first time in a long time, is not able to attend our meeting tonight due to a scheduling conflict. So we are including the strategic report of April and May along with the annual report in your consent agenda. So I did hope you had time to review that. And then item 4, the consent agenda this evening is approval of the FY24 Area Agency on Aging funding from the North Carolina Division of Health and Human Services, and more specifically, the Division of Aging and Adult Services. This is the annual federal and state funding for services in our 9-county region for services to older adults with the guidelines of the Older Americans Act. Approximately 85% of the funds received are pass-through funds provided through the counties for direct services such as senior nutrition, transportation, in-home aid services, senior centers, and more. So that's huge. So it's on there. And then item 5, for those who are new to the executive board, this item appears annually on your consent agenda for approval, is to delegate the executive board's authority to approve the final budget amendment of the year to the Finance Committee, which will meet at the end of June. And as a reminder, the Finance Committee consists of all board officers. Any questions regarding the consent agenda?
This is Martha Sue, move approval.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve the consent and the record agenda as presented. And Martha Sue has a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Cynthia Lewis Lemon has a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
And depending on the results, we have motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We now bring your attention, please, to item 6, Centralina Spotlight. This is one of my favorite parts of doing this thing right here. Centralina Spotlight success story. I just love this, hearing about the different things of Centralina. This one tonight, Centralina staff from various departments share a success story. This time I'll introduce David Hollers. David, open the floor here for you, please. Oh, continue on.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to Central Regional Council. We appreciate all of you taking your time to serve on the executive committee and the executive board and be part of our activities. I represent the Centralina Workforce Development Board. As you know, We serve 7 out of the 9 counties in Centralina region, serve Anson, Cabarrus, Iredell, Lincoln, Roy, and Stanley and Union counties. And we're proud to say we were the very first multi-county regional workforce board in North Carolina. We set the standard for that, started in 1983. We do a lot of work in all our communities and a lot of work with businesses as well as with career seekers through our NC Works Career Center. We have 8 of those in our 7 counties. But in addition to the private sector business, we also do a lot of work with public sector business, both school systems, with colleges, community colleges, and a lot of work with municipalities. That's taken off in the last few years because you, like every other private sector employer, you're looking for people to go to work. So we've done a lot of partnerships with different communities. One that you'll see spotlight tonight is town of Mooresville, and that's not a shameless plug because you work there, Bobby, but we are working with them in light of that, but we appreciate that. We also recently started a partnership with City of Concord, and that came about after a regional managers meeting right here in this facility, where Lloyd Payne said, I'm not sure if we work with your NC Works Career Center. So he got on the phone, texted his HR person, and next thing I know, we're having an event at our NC Works Career Center in Cabarrus a couple of weeks ago, which ended up having 39 applicants apply, and several of those who are ended up being good quality applicants that the city is now considering hiring. Again, they're bringing back in some sanitation services to the city, as well as working with hiring for police, Parks and Rec, and several other departments, just like every one of your cities is trying to do right now. So if you're not already connected with our NC Works Career Centers, please reach out to me or any of our NC Works Career Centers in your community. And I think we've got a short video to share right now, Marissa.
This month, our spotlight is on Centralina's workforce services for local governments, led by the Centralina Workforce Development Board and their team of professionals. The work of the Centralina Workforce Development Board supports the goals of person-centered services that enhance an individual's ability to thrive in their careers and communities and building local government capacity, efficiency, and innovation. Formed in 1982, the Centralina Workforce Development Board was the first multi-county regional workforce board in North Carolina. The board is led by a 24-member private sector group of individuals who develop policies and oversee workforce initiatives in a 7-county region consisting of Anson, Cabarrus, Iredell, Lincoln, Roy, Stanley, and Union counties. The board is also responsible for the management, operations, oversight of 8 local NC Works Career Centers. The integrated teams at our local NC Works Career Centers are committed to providing employers with the talent they need to run their business successfully and ensuring every career seeker is a qualified candidate through the services tailored to those individuals. These services include talent matching, career assessment and guidance, skills training and retraining, on-the-job training, virtual and in-person hiring events, labor market information and workshops. You can keep up with all this information for our NC Works Career Centers by downloading the NC Centralina app via the QR code on your screen. An example of how the Centralina Workforce Development Board assists all employers in our region, in particular local governments, is the work of our NC Works Career Center Mooresville staff with the town of Mooresville. Because of the relationship established with the NC Works in the town of Mooresville, the town has had several NC Works customers to go to work with the town through work experience and on-the-job training. An example is of an individual who was hired through Violet Carter with the town of Mooresville HR department. This individual started out in a work experience, worked her way up, did a great job, and is now working full-time with the town of Mooresville. The town is committed to hiring all their departments, and they have worked extensively with NC Works on both in-person and virtual hiring events at different locations throughout the community. The town has been very willing to use NC Works as part of their talent solution strategy, and that makes this a great partnership. If you like help in talent acquisition and retention for your community, please reach out to Centralina Workforce Development Board. We look forward to working with you.
I apologize for that voiceover. That particular day I was dealing with some science issues. So I tried to do my best to get through it, but it was a challenge. But a lot of the things that you'll see there are available to help all of our local communities and help our local municipalities and counties. I'd also like to thank Jarvis Woodburn. Jarvis serves as the chair of our Workforce Development Consortium, the 7 counties we mentioned here. And as of July 1st, another Ansonian, Christina Ford, with Southern Piedmont Ivy, will be the chair of our Workforce Development Board. We're glad to have her in that position. Again, our board is very dedicated to helping our communities, and we'll reach out and do anything we can to assist you on that. As you saw there, it's part of your overall talent solution strategy. We are only one part of it. There is no magic silver bullet. It's not Indeed, it's not looking at any other job boards, but it's using all your available resources. Right now, the dwindling supply of labor in our communities, with individuals who are aging out of the workforce, with folks who are still not interested in working, we're trying to move that needle and get more people involved and included in our workforce. So again, if you have any questions, if you have any kind of concerns, you need some help finding people, give us a call. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And it is, as you mentioned, a great partnership to work with these folks. So we're very, very pleased to have them in Mooresville and as far as Centralina in our region that we have. Anyone have any questions or comments for David and the Centralina's Workforce Development? Again, it's a great program. So David, again, thank you. Thank you for your staff for all the work. And I tell you what, we were lucky to draw this young lady right here from David's department to come and do this for
I don't know
us.
if David agrees.
You see how workforce development works.
It does transfer from one department to another within the same organization. Same thing, it worked out well. It's a success story, David, a success story.
We'll write it up there. It'll be on the app there. If you go to Google Play or the iTunes store, you can just download, put in NC Centralina app to put up. It's free of charge. And especially helpful for our communities to say, what kind of hiring events are going on right now? You can pop on there for hiring events for Iredell County, for Anson County, and it'll show you what's happening during that week. We regularly update it. Also have a hot jobs list on there. So if you want to get your jobs for your community municipality, let us know. We can put those on there. People can access it very easily.
Oh, great. I'm glad that you said that. That's great. That's good. Okay, before I move on, any further questions, Mr. Hollers? Good, we'll move on. I'd like to bring your attention now to item number 7, the overview of discretionary grants in relation to Centralina's budget. Our executive director will share a presentation on the role of grants play in Centralina's budget, and the board be asked to authorize her to enter into agreements to accept funding for 2 grants. Now, I know where y'all come from. Grants are huge in every aspect of local government. And this organization, if it wasn't for grants, we'd be dead in the water. It's very important in Centralina. So I want to emphasize that. And we're unlike local governments here in Centralina that about spending tax revenues to accumulate operations, programs, and services. Centralina relies heavily on grants to fund the majority of its work. It's important for our board members to understand how important grants are for the budget, operations, and strategic goals. Mrs. Gardner, it's all yours.
Thank you. I'm gonna move over here so you all can see. Can folks on the Zoom hear me okay? This position? Okay, great. So as Chairman Compton introduced, I wanted just to spend a little bit of time, since we have some new executive board members, kind of helping you all understand a little bit more about our budget and our revenues in particular, and the role that grants play in our work. Councils of governments are kind of a hybrid local government, small business, and nonprofit. So just kind of think about those 3 things existing within this organization. We have some local government functions in that we provide services that are federally contracted through aging and workforce. We have no ability to raise revenue, though, like you all do in your local government. So we're a little bit different in that sense. We're also a nonprofit in a sense because we rely heavily on grants to fund our operations. And the dues that our local governments contribute to the organization are kind of like a donation in a sense. And then we're also in a way like a small business because we offer technical assistance and service contracts, and a lot of that relies on our marketing of those services, and it depends on whether or not a community wants or needs those services and goes into contract with us for that. So unlike some of your local governments that collect revenue and you're spending down that revenue, we're kind of in the opposite situation, and we're building our revenues up in order to spend them. This is a little bit of a profile of our revenue. What is missing from this table are the pass-through grants. So you approved tonight the community block grants for health. That's a lot of that revenue goes directly out to your counties. Same thing with the Workforce Development Board. Those revenues pass through the organization and go out into the community. These are the revenues that stay in-house. 62% of our revenues are from grants. So it's a significant portion of our budget. Technical assistance, membership dues, and other revenue represent the rest of that. Grants obviously calls into question stability, since some grants are annual and are based on formula, like what we receive for aging and for workforce development. Other grants are discretionary and competitive, so you're competing against other organizations and communities for those funds. So our formula grants, which are basically awarded based on population or other characteristics, are relatively stable or predictable. We know based on population or unemployment, in the case of David's funding, how much funding we will receive on an annual basis, and it's relatively predictable. Discretionary grants really depend upon the competition. It depends on what's available, if we're competitively awarded, and we have a significant organization-wide impact because so many of our departments rely on grant funding. Our other type of revenue, membership dues, is also predictable, but it has a pretty limited impact on our overall budget compared to other funding sources. And technical assistance contracts, those also fluctuate based upon the need in the community. So they're a great impact in terms of our revenue if we can get the business, but it's not as predictable or stable as some of our other revenue sources. So part of our long-term funding strategy as an organization is to balance out the unpredictableness with some predictable revenue sources and making sure we've got a really diverse portfolio of resources that we're bringing in to fund the organization. This graphic just visually represents the blue lines are grants, discretionary grants. You can see that every department is touched by this. Whether in the kind of the depth or importance of grants depends upon the department, but certainly planning and economic development, as well as our game department, pretty heavily depend upon grants for their work. So what do we use with grant funding and how is it important to the organization's bottom line? Well, there's two main operational impacts. First, we have indirect funding that comes in through that supports the overhead of the organization through the grants. That's a federally established rate that Denise works with our federal agency sponsor to establish each year. That also depends upon our expenditures each year. So it's not a rate that's set in perpetuity. It also directly funds salaries for those staff members who are working on the grants itself. And then from a programmatic perspective, it helps us achieve our goals. It allows us to be entrepreneurial. And most importantly, when we do big planning projects like Connect Beyond or the SEDS, we need grants to fund implementation. Otherwise, they're just plans. Our grant strategy really tries to balance opportunity with capacity. So first we look to what are our focus areas and our regional goals. So we're going to work on things that are important to the region, that are aligned with our strategic plan. And then we're going to look at our capacity and look at our expertise. We also like to partner. So in some cases, it's services that we can provide directly. In other cases, we need to partner with other organizations. And we also look at whether or not match is required. A lot of federal grants require a local match. And so depending upon our resources, that limits or extends opportunity for what we can apply for. This is just a snapshot of some of our federal, state, and philanthropic or sub-award partners. So kind of runs the gamut across these agencies. And we're always looking to partner in new ways. In fact, two of the grant agreements that you have for approval tonight will add partnerships with U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and the Environmental Protection Agency. So this is a forecast of the grants that we have kind of in the pipeline that I wanted to make sure the board was aware of. The first two will go into a little bit more detail in just a moment. Also wanted to let you know that we kind of had a little May madness, if you will, with grants this year. We applied for several grants, including a $3.9 million ask of the U.S. Department of Transportation under the Regional Infrastructure Accelerator Program. So if this funding is awarded, this will also be coming to the board for endorsement. This is really funding that's focused on supporting Connect Beyond implementation. So this would be a significant grant if we received it. We're also looking to restart our brownfields program this coming fall and applying for brownfields assessment grants. So in total, you can see this is about, it's almost $7 million worth of requests out there. So we are really, as an organization, trying to leverage the federal funding that's available to us through the different recovery and infrastructure packages that were passed by Congress. All right, before I go on to the two specific grants that are up for consideration this evening, do you all have any questions about the roles that grants play or our grant strategy?
Any questions for our executive director?
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Powell.
How do you decide? Do you use our input to prioritize the grants that you're seeking?
We use our work plan and our goals as the benchmarks that we use to decide which grants to go after. So the work plan that you'll endorse tonight, hopefully, that lays out our priorities. For example, it indicates Connect Beyond implementation is a priority for us. SEDS implementation, which is our economic development strategy, is a priority. So we'll try to find grants that work to achieve those objectives.
So just for instance, in the infrastructure grant, like a couple things you said that often a local match is required. Is that part of this infrastructure grant?
No, that's free money. No match required on that money.
Good to know.
Yeah, and our local match usually is sourced to our membership dues. So we would not be going out back to our membership to ask for additional funds unless it was some special circumstance.
Thank you.
Any further questions before she moves on?
Great. So just a few more details about the two grants that are before you this evening. The first is the North Mecklenburg Housing Initiative. This is a grant from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for $1 million. Christina and her team will be leading the implementation of this if you approve. This was an effort that was a long time coming. About over a year ago, we made this request to HUD. Commissioner Powell and mayors of the towns of Cornelius, Huntersville, and Davidson supported this effort. And basically, there are two components to this grant. The first is, the overall picture is how can we help older adults, disabled adults, and veterans in the North Mecklenburg towns remain in their homes through a strategic home improvement to their existing homes. So these are homeowners that are potentially threatened with gentrification and displacement because of rising home values. And there's some critical home repair that they may need in order to stay in that community. This is a very common housing program offered by HUD. We have a state level program that is offered and as well as federal programs under HUD. So the first component is to do a program evaluation. Who's using these programs? Why are they using them? What are their barriers and challenges? And then the second and probably more impactful aspect of the program is that we're working with the towns to identify homeowners that would receive specific home improvement grants to make sure that their life safety issues or accessibility issues are addressed in their homes. So this is direct assistance for individuals as well as the programmatic component to this to make sure federal dollars are used wisely and sufficiently.
So let me ask, Geraldine, these grants would be for owner occupied housing,
Correct.
not for a landlord for a rental property. Is that
Owner
right?
occupied housing. Yeah. So we hope through this that we're enhancing housing preservation and aging in place, that we're identifying barriers to potential uses of these programs, I think sometimes there's some suspicion around, well, why, what's the catch, right? Or why should I allow this government program to connect and be a part of my home? So we're seeking to understand those barriers and then to make recommendations back to HUD about ways to improve that. It's also a great opportunity to build our relationships in the 3 North Mac towns that are a part of this. There's a lot of housing challenges that are facing the North Mecklenburg community, especially rising rents and homeownership prices. So this is a great way to build their capacity in the towns and show some regional collaboration at the county level. Any questions regarding
Is there a
this?
minimum? For example, if somebody's hot water heater goes out, are we talking about something that small, or are we talking about something bigger? I saw that you had 50,000 as a max, but is there a minimum that you would be willing to deal with?
Christina, do you want to take that one?
That's a great question, Mayor. The program was to do a substantial repair to help them to stay in their homes. So a lot of times that requires door widening or redoing kitchens and baths or giving them an extra bathroom on the first floor, or maybe allowing a caretaker to live in with them so that they don't have to be displaced from their home, go to a facility. So it could include the HVAC as the only option, but there are many other programs that are doing that. This is really to identify those that are at the edge of those funding programs and need more, and getting them to the end game to stay in place.
Okay.
I had one other thing. I think most of us would be jealous that a program like this couldn't come to our towns and counties as well, because those 3 towns I'm sure are in need, but I know there's a lot in Gaston County that could use it as well. And I'm sure the other county representatives here could vouch for that as well. So it's kind of like, is there more grant money out there that we could get this for the different counties, the other counties and towns too?
I think that's our goal. We're trying to start small and pilot and figure out what's working, what are the tweaks that we might need to make. The lessons learned from the program evaluation is really important to that. And then I think it would be a great opportunity to scale the program into other areas.
This could be a godsend for a lot of these people.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add, Kannapolis has a grant program similar to this, and we do start small and, sometimes it's build a ramp for somebody who is now needs to wheelchair access or whatever it happens to be, or maybe just replacing a hole in a roof or whatever it happens to be. And the funding model that we use for that is the North Carolina Finance Housing Initiative that is out of Raleigh, and we get $100,000 each year to use for that purposes to start small. So maybe you want to look into North Carolina Finance Agency.
Great, so I'm gonna move us to the next grant, and Michelle's on the line and she's gonna walk you through this next one. Michelle?
Thank you, Geraldine, for the introduction. This EPA grant will help the region advance goals that were really first established with the Connect Our Future project, aimed at improving air quality, transportation choices, and energy efficiency. And wanted to state up front, Centralina is leading on this, but we are in partnership with our sister COG in South Carolina, the Catawba Regional Council of Governments. And so we're working on this together. And what this project will do is it helps us, between the 2 COGs, coordinate strategies that will help communities integrate and improve their mobility networks. So all those good things and Connect Beyond, it will help us kind of move those forward. Investing in energy efficient buildings and fleets at the local government scale, improving public health through air quality and access to physical activity, implementing local and regional economic development strategies, and then tracking the progress. Next slide. Some of the identified needs that we've heard about through the region. If you'll recall, we talked about this at your last meeting, at the Board of Delegates meeting. We've also talked to the managers at a couple of their meetings, and also a regional stakeholder group. And our region is really focused on the things that you might imagine, right? Bike and pedestrian networks. They want to make sure that those are in place. A lot of our communities, a lot of our counties have a big component of agriculture, And so they were really interested in, the local foods. How do we distribute those foods? Are there more efficient ways to do that? Making sure our farmers markets have ways to get the food not only from the farmers to the direct sale, but also directly selling to restaurants. Transit investments, efficiencies in buildings, fuel efficiency. So thinking about your fleets, waste systems, recycling and disposal, and then public health. Next slide. So this project is basically in a very quick time frame, and I'll go over the timeline in just a second, but is to pull the plan together so that local governments will have access to 4.6 billion in competitive implementation grants. The key is that the state of North Carolina is doing their own plan, the state of South Carolina is doing their own plan, and the largest MSA, metropolitan statistical areas, are doing region-specific plans. The reason why that's important, the states will do a great job, but we want to make sure that our communities are represented. So we're kind of a little more on the ground than the state in making sure that what our communities want will end up in this plan. Once the table is set and the plan is done, communities then will be able to apply on the, to EPA. We're basically setting the table, and then communities that want to move forward can. Participating communities, only those that are part of the process will be eligible, and we plan to include everybody. And then those implementation funds are only for the strategies that are in the plan. So that's why it's really important. We will be doing a lot of engagement on this. The map that you see is the MSA. So those are the dark green colors. That is our MSA. We're going to include Cleveland and we're going to include Stanley because for transportation reasons, Stanley and Anson are in the same transportation organization. Cleveland is with Lincoln and Gaston. Just makes sense to include them. And then of course, as I mentioned, Catawba Regional to the south, we will be working with them. Next slide. So the important piece is the timeline. We will be awarded this funding. I'm watching my email every day. I'm hoping in the next weeks we will get the award letter for $1 million. And it's important that we start right away because we've got to engage the region and have a preliminary plan done by March 1st. And of course, we got holidays and all that. So that is a really quick turnaround. But in January through March of 2024, so that's coming up, that's when that implementation money will be available. So we've got to have at least the preliminary plan in place so that our communities will be ready to go. Once we do the preliminary plan, they say, okay, now let's step back and do a little bit more detailed plan. And that will put us into the 2024, 2025 timeframe. And then we'll do a status report a couple years later so we can measure our results. So it's a really great opportunity, and we're very excited about the possibilities of working in all the communities and getting inputs from you so that you can have access to all these funds.
Thanks, Michelle. One thing to note, this is an example of a formula grant. So we're getting these funds because in the legislation, it says the top most populous metropolitan statistical areas will receive this $1 million planning grant. So although we had to file paperwork and Michelle and her team did a great job of putting a comprehensive plan together, this funding is coming to us and we have to start work as soon as it arrives. And we can, I think the time pressure is this board does not meet again until September. And by then we already need to be into the planning process. So that's why we're asking for your approval this evening to allow me to enter into that grant agreement once it's sent to us by EPA. So any questions about this particular grant for Michelle?
Any questions for Michelle Nance?
So that concludes our presentation. So the action in front of you tonight is to authorize me to enter into grant agreements to receive the $1 million of HUD funds for the North Mac Housing Preservation Initiative and the EPA grant to receive $1 million for the climate pollution reduction grant.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Darrell Henning.
Mayor Hennett has made a motion. I just want to make a comment before we have a second, move on. If you look in your packet, there's a timeline on this. And then if you look on page 26, under time sensitivity, there's some urgency required also. So that was a great presentation on grants. As you know, if you deal with them in the local government area, you either accept them or you miss out. And any grant you turn down, it's very unlikely it will come knocking on your door again, or if you apply, they're going to set you aside for another round somewhere down the road. So it's a sensitive material. So again, may I read the motion, Mayor? So I just need a motion to authorize the executive director enter into 2 separate grant agreements with U.S. Department of Housing, Urban Development, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency in order to receive $2 million in federal funds. I have a motion by Mayor Darrell Hennett. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Sean Rush. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. Very good. That's great news. See, stuff like that come up, oh my gosh, that is just great news. Just excited, very excited. Okay, this will be another meeting coming up now. Your attention, item 8, FY24 work plan briefing and approval. Our executive director will provide our board with a briefing on the proposed FY23-24 work plan that implements year 2 of Centralina strategic plan, which we are being asked to approve, so that activities can commence on July 1 of 2023. Another time-sensitive matter here, folks. So Geraldine, you take it away, please.
Thank you. Clock is ticking again. So we really appreciated the engagement from the board at the May Board of Delegates meeting, where you went around and engaged with staff and provided feedback on the work plan. So tonight, what was sent around to you in the pre-read materials for the board meeting, as well as the brief presentation I'll give you this evening, really encapsulates a very impressive, in my opinion, body of work that our directors have put forward to you all this evening for endorsement. I think the organization and the leadership of the director team, I think, is really shining through this year with the level of ambition, the level of service orientation, and commitment to both the region and your local communities. So I hope that you all are excited by what you saw on these pages. Just as a reminder, the foundation for our work plan is our strategic plan, our mission and our vision. I think we really feel that trying to be a trusted partner with you all and leading this work forward is something that we continually strive for on a daily basis, as well as living our mission and working with all of you and our communities to improve quality of life and expand opportunity. The goals that you all may remember here, we have 4, and our work plan is oriented around them. The first goal is that big picture regional collaboration. So the grant that you all just approved, that Michelle will be leading, that planning activity around climate and pollution reduction, is a prime example of this first goal. The second goal is working with your communities to build capacity. The third goal is our person-centered services, the work that David and Linda's team do across the region. And the last goal is related to our continuous improvement as an organization. The structure is pretty simple. We have goals, we have strategies that implement the goals, and we have core services. So things that we do on a daily basis that may not be the new, better, different that is represented in the actions, but are vital to achieving our mission. We had input from the regional managers, from the Board of Delegates, as well as staff input from our all-staff retreat and department level engagement. So in all, there's 73 actions in the work plan. That's 10 more from last year. And I did a lot of cutting and consolidation from the department. So we tried to even further whittle it down, but folks were being very ambitious this year, which is great. You can see that the majority of our actions are in goals 1 and 2. But our core services in aging and workforce are so critical that we need their teams and capacity to focus on that service delivery. So the new, different, better activities are a little bit more targeted and strategic under that goal. So I just wanted to hit a couple of highlights, things that we're excited about to try to condense those 73 actions down into a couple of bullet points. The first around regional collaboration. We're really focused on implementation this year. We did huge planning efforts with Connect Beyond and the comprehensive economic development strategy. And our teams are focused on getting that work done, making sure that the plans are not just plans. We're continuing to dig deeper into our resilience work and working with counties to develop the next level of technical planning for disaster preparedness and recovery. We're doing more on our data analysis, and this year we'll be presenting kind of a state of the region report. I think the data presentation that we did in May was very well received, and it seemed like you all wanted to do more of that. So we'll dig in on that. And of course, our continued work on advocacy at the state and federal level. For goal 2, our support to you and your communities, we're really focusing in on continuing to advance our work with smaller communities. There'll be more focused activities, whether it's peer programming, technical assistance, or learning networks to really connect and support our smaller communities that may need additional technical expertise or just the opportunity to connect with each other. Of course, we're going to continue our grants work, and there is a bill pending right now in the General Assembly that would provide resources to COGS across the state to enhance financial services to local governments. If that is awarded, then that would be another expanded activity that we would be focusing on. And then the last bullet, David mentioned his work with all of your local governments regarding employee attraction and retention and professional development. So there's a lot of activities that David and his team have flagged in the work plan to support that effort and build those relationships. Under service to individuals, as I mentioned, the core services that we offer under aging and workforce really are the bulk of our capacity, time, and energy and impact in the region. But our 2 departments did offer up some really interesting and innovative ways to deepen that work and expand it according to our strategic plan. Linda and her team are working to build more relationships with our Medicaid managed care providers. That's really the future of aging funding and business opportunities. So we're doing more work in that space. Enhanced programming, as well as the youth opportunity sites model that David and his team have been working on has been very successful, and that will be expanded in a few other locations this year. Finally, looking in-house, Denise, it will continue to refine our 3-year financial plan. We're focusing on our staff, doing some succession planning and career pathway development that builds on the work we did this year with the paying class study. Also looking to build our One Centralina culture through additional staff engagements, some more service projects in the region, and then a few updates to our website and continuing evolution of our brands and external communications activities. So that is really just a snapshot of those 73 activities. One thing to note that we're really excited about is that we have a birthday this year. I don't know if everyone's aware, but we are 55 years old. So we are going to be doing a special effort this year to celebrate our 55th anniversary by connecting with our 55 local government members. So we are going to be out on the road in the field, meeting with you and your managers and your teams to get to know your communities a little bit better, build those relationships, et cetera. For those of you who are here for the 50th anniversary, we focused on our counties. So it was a big focus on our 9-county region, For our 55th, we're going a little more local and we're gonna be highlighting our communities. So stay tuned for more information about that. And our October Board of Delegates meeting will be more of a celebratory event in honor of our birthday. Oh, one more slide. We'll continue to do our reporting to the board as we do in quarterly reports and our annual reports so that you're aware of our progress as we get into the year. So that concludes my presentation.
Any questions for our executive director? David Holler's organization, the Career Works, the Centralina NC Works was mentioned again. How long have you been working here, Dave? How long have you been doing this? What do you do?
With Centralina in
Yes.
October, will be 40 years.
40 years. Now, he doesn't look that old. Look at him. I have more gray hair than he does. I don't even know. Anyway. So, yeah, Geraldine mentioned again in her report, and got me thinking when he was giving his report earlier, in the earlier agenda item. I knew he'd been here a long time, and the work he does is great. And so it comes out in the report too. And also, I just want to say, I got the 22-23 work plan, and then I'm holding the 23-24 work plan, and I was flipping pages. Look at some similarities, but the 23-24 is broader, is you're reaching out more, you're doing more, it's affecting more. So I just can see, since Geraldine has been here, how this organization has grown. And I got things and clips in here that I keep refer back to, annual reports and so on, in the progress this organization has made. And it's people like David Holler's been here for 40 years. That's you're not an old guy either, so you must start really young.
Yeah.
So it's just the staff that's here that does this, that makes this thing work. And again, wow, 55 years old, that's saying a lot. And I think that's when I met our executive director. I wasn't chair yet, and when she came, it was our 50th. I think she was a guest at that event. And I walked in to introduce myself because I knew I was going to be coming around to this one to do this. And we spoke briefly, and she's the only one I worked with, like this. So I'm proud to say I've been part of this and knowing folks, staff members, and working with everyone and all of you, part of our 9 county region. So it's been a great ride, and we're going to continue on for 55 and keep moving forward. Again, any questions since I've been saying all that? Any questions regarding Geraldine? Commissioner Howard.
I don't really have a question, but I just want to say, kind of piggyback on what you're saying. Thank you for your leadership, because I am familiar with prior to when you came. And it's really important, the mindfulness that you keep expressing, like you said it several times tonight, about how important it is to have the plan of implementation. Like, I was in a meeting yesterday where somebody asked a question, one of my fellow commissioners asked a question, and he said, wow, we have all these plans, A plan, Z plan, Q plan, 2020 plan, 2030 plan, 2040 plan, and nobody's following the plan. And so what good is it if we don't have a way to implement it? And that mindfulness is really important. And I also wanted to share that today, after COVID, there's been a lot of concern about what's happening in our long-term care facilities. And so I have been working with Centralina staff. And every single person I work with, whether it's over that or anything else, has just been so gracious and helpful on really serious issues. And so in the part where you were talking, like you were going over the goals, I thought, you guys are so committed to the goals in a deep level that isn't reflected here, but thank you for that. And thank you, like the staff is awesome.
They are.
Thank you.
That's true.
And I just want to say that out loud, because when you need help with something and you feel like you have no authority, you still have a voice. And how do you use your voice to make a change when you don't have authority on helping people that are in these long-term care facilities that need help? So thank you.
Thank you. And I was touched earlier too, just a conversation. Geraldine was doing a presentation, and then Mayor Hannon reached out to Mayor Pro Tem McCosh on just a little something to offer out there. So that's what we're all about too, when we get together and go back and forth to things and offer an idea or a thought that we can use, take back with us. So I want to thank everyone for that too. All right, on item 8, on the work plan briefing and approval, may I have a motion to approve the FY 23-24 work plan?
So move.
Alan Rush made a motion. I hear a second over here by Commissioner Powell. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Another great presentation. Thank you so much. Kevin, direct your attention now to item number 9. Advancing the planned update. Yeah. Okay, last fall, the Advancing the Plan Committee was established as an official ad hoc advisory committee of Centralina Executive Board to steward regional conversation and action that advances the implementation of the Connect Beyond Regional Mobility Plan. Committee is made up of elected officials and city and county managers from across the region who are meeting on a bi-monthly basis throughout 2023. Staff has been providing executive board with regular updates about the committee's work. In today's meeting, we have the honor of hearing an update from our fellow executive board member and committee's co-chair, Mayor Darrell Bennett from the city of Kannapolis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the opportunity to share this information with everybody. As you have already said, this committee was established last year, and as a result of that has been working very hard. I am honored to serve as one of the co-chairs for the Advance the Plan Committee, and along with Mayor Vilas from the city of Charlotte. And this committee was formed for several things. You're going to hear this word over and over. You're going to say to yourself, does he not know any other word other than collaboration? But tonight it may seem like I do not. Because this is really, really important. We've seen that word already up on the screen several times, but it's even more important for the reason that Commissioner Powell just said a few moments ago. To have a plan and not use it, just put it up on the shelf doesn't help anybody. So how do we make that happen is part of this committee's advanced plans responsibility. We are charged with improving communication across jurisdictional lines. We are asked to make sure the plan doesn't sit on the shelf and to become something active and involved and active along the way. And we're also talking about regional collaboration on issues of mobility. For that regional collaboration, you know, it's really easy to say, well, I want to do so-and-so for my town, but, oh, and that means I got to send some money to Josh over there, or I got to send some help to Josh along the way. Why would I ask my board to do that unless I have some idea that regionally collaborating is going to benefit all of us? And so that's the important key that we're working with here. As we try to maintain momentum to carry Connect Beyond to that regional collaboration, it's important, I think all of us understand the idea of collaboration, but it is sometimes difficult to make it happen. So let me give you some reasons why we should all be interested in making it happen. One, as our infrastructures are shared, that is the road that I came in on to this location tonight, the county line, I crossed the county line. Nobody stopped at the county line and asked permission to come on over, or nobody going the other direction asked permission to go into the other county. It's seamless. We all share those routes. We share that infrastructure. It's important to know what it means for us to share it for today and tomorrow. And you know, we're all connected to so many other ways too. No one community has everything they want. And so it's sometimes jobs, it's sometimes transportation, it's sometimes healthcare that all of us may need or want as part of our community's request. Also, for the economy, those connections are important to all of us. More than half of the region's persons work in another community other than the community they live in. So think about that. Half of every person in your town works someplace else other than your town. So as a result of that, it's critical that we move people back and forth between those locations. Second or third, to attract employers, we have to demonstrate that we have jobs, that we have people who can do the work for them. I mean, just the very first question I get asked of me when I'm out recruiting for business is, do you have a workforce? I may not have all the workforce in Kannapolis for that particular industry, and maybe Mooresville, or maybe Huntersville, or maybe Spencer, or whatever it has to be, may have to contribute a workforce to make that business go. So we're all interdependent as we go along in order to make that production line work, in order for those finished products to get out into the marketplace. So if you don't have a vision, then we're going to be sitting, we won't be as economically competitive. We will find ourselves that our residents will have a harder time getting to where they want to go to, and our businesses will suffer as a result of that. So my purpose tonight is to share with you an update on advancing the plan and that committee and how it's been working. We've met 3 times so far. 1, we have set the following goals for ourselves. How can we advise short-term opportunities for regional collaboration? Is there a chance that we could have one software package that would allow you to get on in Salisbury and get off in Kings Mountain for whatever it happens to be that connects us here? Can that be done? Are there feasible options for some kind of regional governance approach? That is, who would do it, how would do it, who would be represented on that board as to how it gets done? Do we endorse, or should we not endorse, a regional communication framework for Connect Beyond and for its implementation? We're also, our 3rd goal is to collaborate and to educate state lawmakers and others who are at state levels that would be involved and participants in this process. And we have been making progress on all 3 of those goals. We have decided on some ideas about transportation demand management program that can connect with our businesses and employers in the region. We have put together education materials that can be shared among us and between us so that you can tell the story yourselves as you go along. And we've developed and kept our lines of communication open and updates on local efforts between us. And okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing is important for us all to know as we go along. And we are currently developing and refining themes for regional governance approach so that if we do put a regional governance program together, what does it look like? How are we comfortable with it? How does Josh and his community participate? How does Jarvis and his community participate? So as we go along, and that's the topic for our July meeting, is the regional governance model. I want to say to you, we are spending time, Geraldine and I both spoke recently to the North Carolina Board of Transportation because we see them integrally involved in these efforts. As a result of that, after each of those meetings, we talked to Secretary Boyette, we talked to other people who are there representing the Board of Transportation to say, will you help us? How can we work together? I can tell you we got resounding comments on how well this region is cooperating and collaborating to get this done. We were told by the Secretary, I wish other regions could work together as well as you all are working together. That's not just happened accidentally. That happened because we're working on it, trying to get it all accomplished. So in closing, Mr. Chairman, I'm saying I'm proud of the dedication of the people who are on this committee. Each one of them wears 2 hats. They wear a hat for their local community. They wear a hat for the region and what can we get done. Sometimes you get confused as which hat you might have on for the moment, but there is an opportunity for us to both to collaborate and to understand when somebody's talking about their community or when somebody's talking about how the region should go. So I can tell you that it's amazing how committed this advanced plan committee representatives are to making it a success. We have 3 more meetings and we're going to make it happen.
I believe you.
Great.
Thank you, Mayor Hand. Any questions for the mayor? Wow. Awesome. That's a lot of work. That's good. You know, you used that word collaboration was used earlier. I was looking in the packet under agenda item 9 and key benefits, regional collaboration. And I try to remember this all the time. Funding increases economic competitiveness, planning for growth, and connects people to jobs. That's a ton right there for all of us. That's great.
And for people who rarely ever talk to each other, they're willing to talk to each other on this committee.
That was great. If we were to receive that as information, I think that was a great synopsis of what the committee's doing over the last, how many meetings, Mayor?
Pardon?
How many meetings have you had?
3.
Only 3, wow.
3 meetings, but 3 more, we're meeting every other month, and it's well attended every time.
Good, good, that's great.
Well attended.
That means a lot right there. That's how many people are interested and want to make this thing work. Wow, that's great. Thank you. I'd like to direct your attention now to item 10, our Raleigh Relations Update. Earl, Kelly West, receive an update from Centralina State Advocacy activities and key legislation in our General Assembly.
So the purpose of this item tonight is really to provide you with kind of an overview of some of our advocacy activities since your last meeting. And then also to give you a report out on some key pieces of legislation that we're watching that's moving through the General Assembly. So first we wanted to give you kind of a report out or a briefing on Legislative Day. The North Carolina Association of Regional Councils of Government once a year in Raleigh convenes representatives from all of the state's 16 COGs to get together and visit with members of their regional delegation in the legislature to talk about priorities that the association has, as well as those from their respective regions. So our cohort was represented by Mayor Pro Tem Hall, who is our Centralina's representative on the forum board, as well as Geraldine and me. And we were able to meet with several legislators that day. You'll see them listed on the screen there. But we used those meetings, one as a relationship building opportunity. So if you'll remember, as part of our Raleigh Relations Initiative, relationship building is kind of really at the center of that. But then also, again, to advocate and discuss the priorities of the association and Centralina as well. And so some of those priorities that we talked about really were focused on the appropriations requests that have been submitted to the General Assembly as part of this budget process. And 3 of those were, of course, Connect Beyond implementation. That's one of our central priorities, but also the association priorities. So as Geraldine mentioned earlier, there's a request in for an allocation for funding to support financial administration for smaller communities. And then also a request for funding that would help to expand the capacity of the long-term care ombudsman program across each of the COGs as well. So those were some of the priorities that we were talking about as they were going into budget negotiations at that time. Another thing that, so one thing that we also left behind with legislators is, and this is also in your packet, the very end, this is just a high-level overview of the advocacy agenda for this year. This was what you all approved back in January, but it just was kind of really an outline of those priorities and kind of grouped by different issue areas, just to kind of give them a sense of what is in our advocacy agenda. But we're always happy to look into bills related to those priorities, as well as those that are related to our work plan and that are directly impacting our region. Our partners at the League and the County Association are great resources to reach out to for any other pieces of legislation that aren't part of kind of what's under our umbrella. So just wanted to mention that. There are a few pieces of legislation that we are closely watching. The big one, of course, is the 2023 Appropriations Act, otherwise known as the biennial budget. So that one has our, well, hopefully, fingers crossed, it will have our Connect Beyond funding request in it, as well as those other 2 funding items I mentioned that the association has. What we have been advised by our state consultant, Chris Wall, is that this week, members of the General Assembly are in the process of discussing those member-driven projects, which these funding requests would fall under that category of member-driven projects. So they were not initially in the House and Senate draft of the bill, of the budget bill, but we're hoping to see them as the outcome of those discussions. Again, we are closely watching what's happening there. A couple of other pieces of legislation that we're watching. One would be the S675, Senate Bill 675, that's the land use clarification and changes. This is the bill that's proposing removal of extraterritorial jurisdiction in municipalities across the state. And as of yesterday, it passed its first reading in the Senate and was then referred to the House for consideration. So it is continuing to move quickly. Some of our partner organizations, such as the League and the state chapter of the American Planning Association, have been working pretty hard, voicing the concern of municipalities about the implications of this piece of legislation. There was actually a handout that I believe you all received after the May Board of Delegates meeting that kind of outlined what that would look like. We'd be happy to share it again if anyone would like to see that. But this is again, I mentioned the League has taken they've been very vocal in expressing those concerns raised by communities across the state. Our state consultant, Chris, has recommended that rather than Centralina taking sort of a public position on this particular piece of legislation, that individuals actually reach out to their representatives to express any concerns they might have. It's a very politically charged piece of legislation, and there's just a lot to consider there. So that's kind of the recommendation that he said, kind of individual outreach. Another piece of legislation that we're also watching is H 600, which was previously Senate Bill 686. That's the Regulatory Reform Act of 2023. This one has some implications for stormwater programs in local governments. For example, it would limit the additional stormwater controls a local government could require for redevelopment or pre-existing development. It would make some changes to stormwater fee calculations. So this one is continuing to move as well. Where actually the House was scheduled to vote on it earlier this afternoon, and prior to this meeting, I had not seen any update on any outcome of that. Or not the House, but rather the Senate Judiciary Committee, excuse me, was scheduled to discuss this bill today. So I have not seen any result from that meeting, but we're continuing to watch this one as well, since it does relate to the stormwater item in our advocacy agenda. So we'll share any updates that we might hear related to this. I'll pause there just to see if there are any questions.
Any questions for Kelly or in her legislative review?
Do you know if anyone has individually advocated? Are you aware? You don't have to say who, but like you're saying that Centralina isn't advocating making any kind of statement, but are any individual counties or cities making statements?
Yes.
There have been several that have passed resolutions for, meaning for 675 or?
Yeah, because I'm so focused on local that it's a big surprise to see this.
We've been made aware of some communities that have passed resolutions expressing opposition to that piece of legislation in our region, but then also others across the state as well. There's been.
Mayor Pro Tem Rush.
I give you a heads up, for Rowan, Salt in the city of Salisbury, as well as us in East Spencer and some other municipalities. This has been a trying situation. Because we know with when you have your ETJ, it gives towns for us, we go out, well, first it's gotta be voluntarily. So give you a prime example, we have a developer that came in that because they was 1 mile outside our jurisdiction, they came to us to ask that they be annexed in our town. Well, the way that part of that land is, it bumped up against the city of Salisbury. So they had to agree to let them come in to East Spencer. Now, when it comes to Rowan County, the city of Salisbury is a rough one, because a developer put a big spec building on an area that was 3 miles outside the city of Salisbury. Since we buy water from Salisbury, Salisbury told them people, okay, in order for y'all to get our water, you got to be annexed into the city of Salisbury. But the county gave tax incentives to this group of people. Well, if Salisbury would have got their way, the county would have had to go back on their word to that developer. So some of the county commissioners went to our representatives and gonna tell them, hey, pass a resolution or pass a bill that'll stop the city of Salisbury from going outside their jurisdiction. So it's been a mess.
Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Yeah, things are always volatile, 3 hours east of here, so
And I think there's some other implications in that same bill as it relates to locally doing your land use plan as well as zoning and anything like that. So this has got a broad scope.
Yes. Right. Kelly, thank you for keeping us abreast on these items. I'm sure there's more to come. Okay, we're received as information. Any further comments or questions, Ms. Weston? If not, that brings us to the end of our meeting. I'll start this part with comments from our board and Centralina staff.
I just have one question.
Vice Chair.
I guess this just not having to do with this meeting, but I haven't heard lately about any kind of the Doppler radar update from how many ever years ago that was, that everybody in that meeting was, let's do it now. And
Radar project. Yes, there is a private sector solution. So there's a company that has been building radar sites in the radar gaps. And they are working to appeal to the National Weather Service to allow for the data to merge into the National Weather Service's alert system. So it's a little bit of a bureaucratic block right now, but it might mean that no one has to spend any public money because the private sector has come in to solve the problem. But for our September meeting, I'll get a little bit more of the latest status, but that's as far as I know where it's at.
I think that's more than what we didn't know prior to.
Exactly.
Yeah, we thought things would be moving along. I'm glad you asked that. So, yeah. Anything else, questions or comments for Centralina or from the board? Okay, any comments from the executive director?
Yes, I have one. I'm gonna take over the screen for a second here. So one of our action items from this year's work plan was to look at our organizational structure and to think about how we can continue to make improvements and build leadership capacity within the organization. So I'm really excited to share with the executive board this evening that as of July 1st, Michelle Nance will be promoted to my deputy executive director. So really excited, Michelle. Michelle has been at Centralina for over 11 years. She's an incredible asset to the organization, her leadership, her expertise, her commitment to the region and our communities. So I'm very excited to have her as a collaborator on some of the work that I'm doing. She will be responsible for our planning, CED, and government affairs and member engagement departments. So she'll be kind of the senior leader of that, working with our directors and staff and collaborating with me on a number of projects around the region. So very excited about that. And part two, oh gosh, animation is a big deal. There we go. Jason Wager, it will be our new regional planning director. So Jason will be promoted as of July 1st. Jason is celebrating his 27th year at Centralina this next month. So we're really excited to have Jason in this capacity, leading our regional planning team. It's a growing team. They're doing incredible work across the region and in our communities. So I'm very excited to see where he can take that improvement. So those are my closing announcements.
That's great
Close
announcement.
out the year.
Jason, again, you started as a young person.
Very well.
I know Jason and Michelle have worked together for a long time, almost side by side, if not side by side, doing a lot of things together. So this will be a smooth transition for you just to keep things going. Congratulations, very happy for you. That's good. Been here a long time, that's really great. Okay, Okay, for my comments, this is good news too. I want to share that Centralina won a national award. Man, just never cease to amaze me. From the National Association of Regional Council for the work of supporting local governments with the American Rescue Plan Funding Administration. Please join me in congratulating the following staff for their hard work on this initiative. Vanessa Hawkins, Kelly Weston, Susie Kadar, Kate Versingle, Tisha Steen, Denise Strasser, and Christina Dennis. Congratulations. That's great. Okay, the next will be, I picked this up over there. I don't know if you might pick this up when y'all got your agenda or something. Share the good news, there's little cards over there. And it's for Centralina, they want to celebrate successes of member governments. Centralina wants to hear more about exciting initiatives currently underway, where you're from and what you do on upcoming projects to keep on Centralina's radar. Use the space below to sharing success stories, best practices, or lessons learned to feature in future social media posts, newsletter articles, publications, and more. So, pick a couple of these up as you go. Anything you got going on, they need to hear about it and you can share it with us. And so we know what's going on and help us, just like what Mayor Hannah and Mayor Pro Tem McCosh was talking about earlier. So I want to share that with you since they're over there. So the next meeting of the board will be, the Board of Delegates will be on August the 9th here in this office. The next meeting for this board will be on September the 13th. So you have July off from hearing anything from me. So keep August 9th and September 13th on your radar. And this young lady here will be sending out information when it gets closer to time. No further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Be careful going home.
So when I said it, you just